Just checking, okay. It's just as awkward in person, this waiting for the virtual thing to start. Okay, we will call the in-person council meeting back to session, yeah. It's to order, and it's been since November 23rd that we all sat in the same room together and had a council meeting. And it seems like way longer, but also sometimes it seems way shorter. But who would have thought a year ago this time we'd be where we are today and grappling with what we are in the globe, in the community, and everything that we've gone through. But it's so nice to be able to be back in person today. We are doing this as a bit of a baby step forward to show that with the lifting of some of the restrictions that we can model that as a organization and do that with our council, obviously, with the plexiglass barriers. We have our masks, we have sanitized, we've made a whole lot of protocol changes, but here we are in person, safe, and it feels so good. So, having said all that, let's get on with our business. So, is there anyone that would like to move the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Reid. No questions? Okay, all those in favor of the agenda? That carries, thank you. And the minutes. Did somebody have an opportunity to read the minutes? And Councillor Flowers? Move to accept the minutes, thank you. All those in favor of the minutes of our last meeting? That carries. We are cruising through our in-person meeting. Still just tingling from how good it feels to be in person. Moving into delegations, where we're going to do a little bit different. I understand we're not going to have administration come forward because of part of our protocols. We would have to clean and sanitize and everything. So I will invite our first delegation, our only delegation, to the podium, please, if you'd like to come up. I'm just going to that part in the agenda. Mr. Brucker, hopefully I got your name right. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sorry?
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
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 Okay. Good evening and welcome.
I'm Ernie Brucker. I reside at 109 West Terrace Point. And I'd like to thank council for allowing me to come and speak this evening and explain the situation. So this goes back quite some time, and the issue at hand is water consumption for the months of January 2020 and February of 2020. At that time, I received an outrageous water bill for the month of January, and at that time basically chalked it up to the possibility of, we had a lot of company, grandkids, possibly taps running, toilets being flushed, and thought not too much more about it other than excessive people in the house. But when the bill came for February, it too was excessive, horribly excessive. So we went from a bill being charged of 6.95 cubic meters of water in December to 47.9 cubic meters of water in January, 47.16 cubic meters of water in February. So as soon as I received the February bill, and I'm kind of a mechanical guy, I do most of my own maintenance, and I can fix toilets and repair leaky taps, and I found no external leakage, no water running through ceilings or anything of the like. So I called a plumber, and a plumber came and found the problem, which was a faulty water softener. And when our house was built, the water softener is hard plumbed into the plumbing system. There's a backwash valve in the water softener, and it's plumbed into the wastewater system of the home, and so there's no sign of external leakage. You don't hear it, you don't see it. Water doesn't run through walls and ceilings, but water was going down the drain. So that was quickly rectified once we recognized the problem. So I came into the ranch house and talked to somebody in utilities after the repair was done and explained the situation, and was told by an individual from utilities that under the circumstances they would adjust my bill. It was something I had no control over. And time went on, and the bill did not get adjusted. And so after coming back to the ranch house for a number of visits, I think it was probably May, I was told that now, not that it would be adjusted, but that it was under review by utilities. And still, nothing got adjusted. So now we're into the fall, and when I came back once again, I was told that, I guess at that point I was told that it wasn't under review anymore, that it couldn't be reviewed, it would have to come in front of council. And then COVID got in our way, and so here I am at this late date, coming to ask if there's a possibility my bill for the month of January 2020 and February 2020 might be adjusted, given the circumstances. It was right away in March of 2020, after the repair was completed. We're right back, there's only 2 of us in the house, we're seniors. The water consumption for March then was right back down to 7.42 cubic meters. So it was this faulty water softener that I was unable to maintain because I didn't know anything was wrong with it. There was no outside evidence something had gone wrong. And I guess, in a sense, it's kind of akin to a water main leak for the town. You can't foresee it. You can't prevent it. It happens. It gets repaired, but unfortunately, some water gets away. And that's what happened to us in our home. And I guess I don't want to take up any more of your time unless you have questions for me. I would just ask for your consideration to have the months of January 2020 and the month of February 2020 adjusted, if possible. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and I want to thank you also for taking the time to come before council. I know it's not always the easiest thing to do, approach like this and state your case and ask for something. So I do appreciate you taking the time to exercise your right and come before us and share your story. The other thing I'd like to thank you for is your patience. We've all, and I think I opened the meeting with this, that we've come through this strange year, and unfortunately that's gotten in the way of us being able to, deal with this in a timelier fashion, if that's a word. The other thing I would just point out is point of procedure, that we may or may not give you a decision tonight. We'll likely defer to our administration for a report back from them, but that's not withstanding that the council could do whatever they like this evening. But just so you're aware that we may,
Sure.
We may make a decision in a future council meeting.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay, that said, I see Councillor Reid, you have a question?
Yeah, I too wanted to thank you for exercising your democratic right. One of the things that this council has prided itself on is being able to hear its citizens, and from whatever form it should be. And I know it's a bit being nerve-wracking on that side of the table, so thank you for taking the time. I'm just curious, if I understand the situation then, What is it, what kind of adjustment are you looking for? Would you consider to be equitable or fair, just from your own perspective?
Well, I guess for me, if it could be averaged with the rest of the months over what we can see is the norm for my normal consumption. I mean, I'm not asking for anything free at all. I'd just like to be excused from the unfortunate breakage that took place and pay my normal rate.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I get, for me, my own personal experiences are, just to kind of share with you something in turn. We went away a couple of summers ago for a couple of weeks, and some of the local neighborhood children decided to play a prank and turned on our garden hose and let it ran for that whole period of time. And when I raised that issue, I understood that because it was on my property and not on the town's kind of right of way, that I was responsible for it. And so while it was painful, it was really painful. I have the greenest lawn in the neighborhood at that particular time. I ended up having to pay that full bill myself, just as sharing experiences with you. But thank you for answering my question.
And I do understand that as well. I guess the difference there is that an outside tap is exposed to anybody that might come along and play a prank. Perhaps in this day and age, we almost need to have locks on our taps and on our solar lights. That's because something else that happened to us is all our solar lamps were pulled out of the ground and stolen. But in this case, I guess I feel the difference in this case is it was totally hidden, and only a plumber that has had experience with this was able to find it. It's not something that the normal homeowner can, unless you go down and take a picture of your water meter every night, you're not going to know that this is going on, and that would be somewhat different than somebody externally turning your outdoor taps on. Any other questions?
Yep, we've got a couple here. Councillor Fedeko, go ahead.
I don't necessarily have a question, but just more of a comment. I mean, I do appreciate where Councillor Reid's coming from, just because of the fact that, yeah, I mean, things can happen externally that sometimes, could be pranks or whatever, but I do feel in your case, and I also appreciate the fact that you've come forward and you've, had to, give this information publicly so that anybody who wants to join on YouTube or on our stream can see it. I do appreciate that. That's not an easy thing to do. I have zero problem going towards an average of averaging out your bills. You're not asking for something for free. I think it's just equitable service of what we need to provide. So I don't have a problem with that. So you have my support in what you're looking for. But again, I'll wait for my colleagues. And I don't know what the decision will be tonight, but I don't mind doing that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fedeko. Councillor Wilson?
It's been a while. Thank you. We heard a similar case to this not too long ago, a couple of council meetings ago, if I recall. And my recommendation there was that we have a tiered water system. We have, I believe, I can be corrected here, but at least 3 tiers of water. And the reason to do that is to influence behavior and try and have people curb their own water usage down. At that time, I believe we decided as a group it might make the most sense to charge all the extra water that went through in that case at the Tier 1 system, because in that case, it's not influencing the behavior of a resident. It's a one-time, one-off issue, and I think we came to a fair and reasonable conclusion there, and I feel much the same about this one and would push a similar solution if I could towards administration. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And if I may, Councillor Wilson, I think that's exactly what administration is recommending we do, is accept as information tonight. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Derricott, but administration, if we accept this as information tonight, we'll come back at a future council meeting with a presentation and some recommendations on how to proceed, and then we can vote on an outcome. You're live.
Thank you. It's the first time here.
Welcome to the
in
chambers.
meeting. Yeah, thank you. Good to be here in person. And yes, that is a recommendation that administration would be pleased to present some information in addition to Mr. Brucker's information, some that council would consider prior to making a decision.
And that might include the tiers, the costs, and all the options that we would have, and then we can debate it at that time. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson, you're good? Yes. Okay. Councillor McFadden?
Yes, I want to say Brooker, but that's wrong. It's Brooker?
Brucker.
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming and presenting and highlighting this. I am confident our administration are going to come back with some options, but I just wanted to assure you that from my perspective, it'll be to treat you as fairly as possible and to make sure that you're not, punished for something that you couldn't reasonably foresee was happening. So,
Thank you.
anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All of that being said, we still need a motion to do something. Councillor McFadden?
I'll move option 2, that council accept the presentation as information and direct administration to come back with a report on options.
Okay. Any further discussion on that or questions? No? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to state the situation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along into business. We have Mr. LaFleche with us tonight to give us an update on the COLT bus stop signage review that we had asked in a similar presentation at a previous council meeting where we were asked to do a few things, and this is the report back from administration. Good evening, Mr. LaFleche. Good to see you in person. Devin, I'm always impressed with the
Branding,
branding, the COLT water bottle,
socks,
you just,
I got it all. I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to wear anything else.
you're living it. Good to see.
Good evening, council. I'll be presenting a review of our bus stop signage for COLT. So the bus stop signage for COLT was implemented 2 weeks before our launch on October 7th, 2019. We started with 152 stops. We're now down to 145 stops. That's just through adjustments, trying to reduce redundancy. And as you can see there, there's kind of a real key rationale and safety concern about making sure we have these spots available so people can easily and accessibly access their bus stop. So for the signage design, we went with a standard 30 by 45 centimeter sign. The way that the sign was designed was actually in collaboration with a number of departments: communications, roads, municipal enforcement, our sign supplier, and one of the key concerns was really traffic safety. So our roads team had some good points to make sure that our sign wasn't too large and did not interfere with regular traffic signs. You really want these signs to work for people who are using the COLT service. When you park, you can take a look at them. But we weren't allowed to go bigger than this because we didn't want to take away from actual signs you need to know, like a crosswalk, a stop sign. Those are really pertinent. And we went with a compromise on reflective signage. So just the colors here, the yellow, is a 3M engineering grade reflective. And we have an anti-vandalism coating on there. And then we also, the way that we designed it was, we did consult Alberta Transportation. Again, this doesn't fall down to their purview, but we did go out and look at all the different sign types, or as many as we could across Alberta and across Canada. And we ultimately landed on kind of going a bit more excessive with, since transit was new to Cochrane, we did add this no parking within 5 meters on the bottom of the sign, which isn't actually standard across the industry, as I'll show with these comparables. So Airdrie and Calgary are kind of the two signs we really relied on heavily. Very similar size, shape. What we ended up going with was pretty much for size and shape identical to them. And then we look at other municipalities, so Edmonton, Fort Saskatchewan, Cold Lake, Leduc, very similar sizes. Again, they don't often put yellow curb paint at every stop, as well as you don't see the no parking on the sign. So we did, being that transit was brand new to Cochrane, we wanted to add that. In terms of our transit bylaw adopted in September of 2019, section 5.1 states that no person shall park a vehicle within 5 meters of a designated bus stop with signage marking the parking restriction, no parking within 5 meters. Since our launch, October 7th, 2019, municipal enforcement has issued 9 tickets. They've received, at least that we're aware of, 2 complaints, once receiving a ticket, including the one in question. And we've received 24 complaints for vehicles being parked at the bus stops. This is mainly from our dispatch. So drivers will contact. In March of 2020, we did request that dispatch does not contact municipal enforcement. They filter it through me. And we only deal with now buses that are, or vehicles that are parked at a stop for a long period of time. We see it throughout the full day, then they make the complaint. We didn't want them responding to municipal enforcement to send them out to someone who is parked there running in. By the time bylaw can get there, there's really, the vehicle is going to be gone. We don't want to waste time that way. So the way that tickets are given are through complaints or by an officer observation. Just to give you a heads up on what we're looking at for upcoming changes to COLT, we do have some spring adjustments, so we'll be looking at, again, working with our drivers, feedback from residents, how can we improve the stop locations, adjusting there. We're also looking at adding bus benches with our advertising partner, Creative Outdoor Advertising, looking at adding 3 shelters, 1 at the SLS Family Sports Center, 1 at the Corrective Services Building, and of course 1 at the Transit Hub. We're also looking at, for part of our local regional service integration, adding those fixed routes. So you can see an example of the signs here. Those will go above our current existing COLT signs for stops that are part of a fixed route. And again, once these run during peak hours, once we have the peak hour end, it goes back to an on-demand stop. So just giving you a bit of a preview for some additional signage coming up. Potential changes, so I did explore some things that we could do. So we have options. I know it was mentioned last council meeting. What about 2-sided signage? We could look at adding this. It's around $11,000 to cover the 140 stops. We are looking at removing 5 stops in the spring adjustment. Curb paint for all sidewalks. This excludes the ones currently painted. This would be around $23,000. Solar bus stop lighting for 40 stops where we don't have currently a street light above the stop, $126,000. So administration's recommendation to council is that council not cancel, repay, or provide restitution for the parking ticket in question, as there is a judicial process available through the provincial courts to challenge matters of this nature, and not repay any other parking tickets issued for a similar infraction. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Well, as always, Mr. LaFleche, I appreciate your attention to detail, and thank you for your presentation. Councillor Fedeko, go
Thanks
ahead.
for the information. I just have one question. Would there eventually be, is there plans for a bench to be there or some sort of additional shelter or something along that line to be located at that location?
That particular stop, not right now. There's not a plan to have a bench. I'll have to look at the benches. We are kind of focusing on the fixed route. That actually wouldn't be a fixed route there. Most of them are running along Center Avenue, so.
Because when I look at some of those places, I mean, that you showed in your example there, I mean, they have a bench there, they have a shelter, right? It makes it much more, obviously nobody's going to necessarily park in a place where they see some additional signage or a bench or a bus shelter. So those are my questions with that. I feel that there's so few tickets and very little complaints that I don't know why we wouldn't kind of take a look at this, but I do understand your point that there's maybe a provincial avenue to look at. So I would support that. I did read the news. There were a lot of people against the fact that, you know, especially that I supported, probably the fact that, you know, this person's ticket could be withdrawn or at least reduced. But I do feel there's not a whole lot of tickets here. And in that case, I mean, our service is fairly new. Some people that come to our community, they may not know. So, I mean, to punish somebody for parking in an area where, I mean, it's not like our bus service is something that's been running for years and years that people actually understand even where the stops are. I don't know. I have a tough one with this one. And because of somebody coming forward, taking that opportunity, I think that if you're willing to stand in front of council in a public forum, maybe you actually need that money more than we need to be concerned about. But that's kind of my 2 cents on that factor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fedeko. Councillor Nagel, you're good.
So I thought the resident who brought this to our attention had a fair comment about the lack of visibility on the no parking thing, the sign. I know it's like it's just rules of the road. You're not supposed to park in front of transit stops, but would it be possible for us to get some clearer no parking signs even even just the inclusion of a little red circle with a P in it. When I'm parking anywhere in the city or in any other community or any street I'm not familiar with, I'm often looking for those no parking signs. Do we know what that would cost?
I mean, if we look at just, so the sign cost actually is in the, when we go back to these costs of even adding the two-sided sign, the sign's actually quite cheap. It's more the time of installing it. So that would be and then we also have to look at where we have some signs, we've tried to install on Fortis poles, really low cost, not adding a pole at every stop. That's also your big cost. So some places we might not have space, we'll have to look at adding a pole. It's an option. But yeah, if you add a no parking sign to each one of them, you're probably looking around that $10,000 to $9,000 range. Maybe a bit cheaper, the signs are smaller, but I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, I think it should be considered for future budget inclusion, maybe not something we rush out, and not necessarily the two-sided signage, but just adding a no parking sign that's a little clearer for people to see. I think it could be
When we
helpful.
did kind of talk to other CUTM, or Canadian Urban Transit Association members to see kind of what the compliance is, it tends to be that even when we look at this is over a year, only 9 tickets, right? And even the complaints are fairly small, and so again, we could consider it. It just is one of those things across North America, parking in front of a transit stop is not allowed.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor McFadden?
Sorry, just for clarity, on our signs, it does say no parking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it does say it on the sign. What I understood it was the way the signs are facing on the street, but,
So for the sign in question, that one, it would have been just at a 90. We try to go for 45 for some, except when it's an A and a B side, so.
okay. So, I think, so when I was looking at this, so I was driving around thinking of this, and because most people are actually getting this, are able to follow the rules. But I think it's, even though transit is new to Cochrane, that anytime you see a sign like this, you know it's a communication of parking. And I think it's kind of beholden on the driver to have a look at these communications and make sure that they understand what they are. So, yeah, for my part, I think it's a good sign. I think it communicates it. It hasn't been a problem really yet, in my opinion. And again, yeah, anytime as a driver myself, you know, you see a sign that's out there, it's beholden on me to make sure I understand what the point of the sign is. So I'm kind of okay with where we're landing. If we're seeing that it goes through the provincial court system and these tickets are being thrown out and it's not standing up provincially, then we could certainly move ahead at that point and address what's clearly a problem. But I'm not really seeing it as a community-wide user problem at this point. So I know it's contrary, and I know it's frustrating for people who might have bills they don't want to pay, but I think this is where we need to land on this item.
Thank you, Councillor McFadden. Councillor Flowers?
I tend to agree with Councillor McFadden. It's horrible to get a ticket. Nobody likes to get them. And I've been told in the city, because I didn't read, that you can't park there after a certain time. And so now I read them really carefully because it hurts in the checkbook. But I think we have to be careful about looking at every ticket as it comes up, and the province will look at it. So there is an avenue, and it's great that it was brought to our attention, but I think we should leave it. Thank you.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, just echo what's been said, but when I first heard this petition from this citizen, I was somewhat sympathetic, and then particularly when Councillor Federico said how many tickets were there, and I'm glad that you've brought that number back. When you think about the number of possibilities and the number of tickets that could be issued, 9 is just immaterial, and so I agree with the rest of council. I would like to move option 1, that we accept their presentation as information and direct administration not to pursue any further action on this matter. I think that you've got this well in hand.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Seeing no other discussion, I'll weigh in. I agree with what's been said. Completely agree with you, Councillor Reid. 9 tickets is not something we need to sound the alarm on. 100% with the 140 some stops we have in the community. And I would echo what Councillor McFadden has said, that it's really up to the motorist to adhere to the rules of the road. And for me, I think I fall on, we really need to be careful as council that, again, we're not looking at every ticket, every water bill, every little thing that can, not little as from a resident standpoint, but things that maybe could be dealt with administratively. And we're not asked to being brought in and weighing in on all these things. And I think we need to really find a line where we are applying a fair and equitable application of our policies and bylaws, and that's really where, you know, we need to stay out of the rest of it. So I agree with the recommended action and the motion on the floor. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to come in after the chair. I just
No, it's
occurred to me as I'm thinking about it
it's all
over here
good.
that if we have 150 stops in town, I think is what I just heard. Or near there.
145 now.
Thank you, yeah. And if it's, we're taking away 5 meters of parking, that's probably a couple parking spots at 150 places around town. So we're taking away, you know, 300 spots around town for parking for, I guess, the good of allowing a bus to come by and pick up curbside. And although I don't have anything I'm recommending right now, it does seem like maybe this isn't the best solution. I realize, I think Mr. LaFleche, you said every community that you've looked into also, it does not allow parking in front of their transit stops. This is common.
Actually, with our stops, we really did, one of our key criteria was not removing existing parking, so a lot.
It's just a general, I'm not sure we're doing more good than we are harm with some of the unintended consequences, but I'll just leave it there, I think, and thanks for the discussion.
Okay. Don't see any other discussion. Councillor Reid has the recommended action moved, so with no further ado, I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? It carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. LaFleche.
Thank you.
Six B on our agenda tonight is a COVID-19 grant program. Mr. Corman, I'm going to repeat this probably for 100 times, as long as we're in person. It's great to see you in person. It's been on this little tiny screen for far too long. I see you have some invited guests from Chamber of Commerce with you tonight. Good evening. We have the awkward standing room only in our gallery now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here to present the COVID Professional Services Grant to you. I do have Kelly Sinclair, the President of the Chamber, as well as Kelly Carson, the the Executive Director of the Chamber, with me to answer any questions after the presentation. So on January 22nd, Council directed administrations to create a COVID recovery grant program, then bring it back to Council for consideration, and here is the program. With the support of, the Chamber, with support from Business Development, they created the COVID-19 Professional Services Grant Program. It is a very straightforward program. This comes right from their website, and I will show you the website afterwards. Basically, the first is to enlist professional support. Choose a provider that can assist your business to access, understand, and navigate the programs. Apply online with the application that is provided in the website. Submit your application along with a copy of your invoice to the and your business license number, obviously for the town. And then the application will be reviewed by the Chamber, and then funds will be sent directly to you. The report will be provided within 60 days of the close of the program to the town of Cochrane by the Chamber of Commerce to understand who accessed the funds, when they did, and how successful the program would be. Obviously, the program will end when the funding is gone, and I will quickly show you the website, if it will go up. Or not. maybe at the end I will. So tonight, I'm recommending the council approves the funding for the COVID-19 Professional Services Grant Program of $20,000. This would be taken from the Economic Development Reserve Fund, and no tax increase would be given on that. We have an option 2 that council approves the funding of the program, but then provides administration with alternative directions regarding the program. Or council could not approve the funding, and we would look at an alternative funding model. But we are recommending tonight that council approves the funding taken out of economic development reserves. And with that, I have no other slides, and I can answer your questions, but I will pull up the website if I can on this computer. I don't think we don't have internet, unfortunately. So I'm here to answer questions, and I do have the chamber here to answer them with you.
Okay, thank you. It wouldn't be COVID if we didn't have an IT problem of some
That's
kind.
right.
So thank you for bringing us back to virtual reality. No pun intended. If I can, I'm just going to provide a little bit of an update before we get to you, Councillor Fedeko. This came from the Economic Recovery Task Force, something that we found and we saw in Leduc. I did follow up with the mayor of Leduc last week, just through mid-sized cities. He gave us an update on the exact same program. They have had 87 businesses that have applied successfully for their grant. The average cost has been $600 per business. So they've gone back to their council and added money to this fund. 37 in Wetaskiwin County, the surrounding, they partnered with their chamber in the county. And from Mayor Young's point of view, he said that they asked their chamber what the return on the investment has been for their council and their community. And the minimum business was able to access $6,000 of funding from the province or the federal government that they didn't have previously, and the maximum was around $10,000. So they felt that that was a very successful program in their community, and for taking I believe it's around a $50,000 bill that they've landed on to help, get 800 or so thousand, or whatever the math is, doing it on the fly, but it's a good return on the investment. So just wanted to give you that little update before we get into the debate. Councillor Fedeko.
Thank you for the information. I also can't connect to the internet tonight, so you're not alone. I want to do whatever we can to support our small business community, obviously. Do we know which businesses would be able to benefit from this type of program? Do they need to be chamber members, for instance? And also, have we gone out to ask the business community, just the small business community in general, just if this would be something beneficial to them? How many businesses are you hoping to kind of be able to help with this program with $20,000? And also, can the chamber deliver on that number as well by being able to assist the businesses that we're asking?
Through the chair to answer Councillor Fedeko's questions, I will answer one of them and then let the chamber come in. We did not reach out to any businesses to see what they required, but I do believe that this would be the small mom and pop shops that maybe have 1 to 10 employees that run, on very little or shoestring budgets that maybe want to tap into the funding but don't have the time or the skill to do so. So I can see opportunity to help those smaller business. When you think of small business is 100 people or less. But we really believe that the ones that will tap into this are the ones that are the smaller businesses. And then I'll let Chamber answer the questions about being a member and such. So I'll move out of the way.
Hi, I'm Kelly Carson. I haven't met every one of you, but I'm the executive director with the Chamber. And when we went down this path of seeing how we could help businesses in Cochrane, it was fairly interesting. We started out with a lunch and learn, which was people that are chamber members, and they don't have to be, but they are. And this isn't for them, it's for everyone. We're just going to manage the program. Now, I was surprised when we had our people that could do that work, which would be accountants and lawyers, but mainly accountants, and learning the complicated way of having to apply for some of this funding. Like anybody, and lots of you I know are in business, know how complicated it is to get on the CRA website and apply for this stuff. And so many have applied for some of this stuff, but found out it was kicked back to them and they were going down the wrong paths. They didn't have the right information. And so the need to have a professional person manage these affairs so that they were able to get some of this money is deep. And I personally go day to day from business to business and find out that money's short, money is tight. And I think it's a huge step for council to allow them to get involved in this, to work them through what is in these programs, because it's deep and you have to have certain information and certain things, and the professional people is a necessity in order to tap that in. And so we want to be the lead in this with the support of council and getting these people signed up for these programs that could possibly get them thousands of dollars that they're missing out on, because we don't know how long this is going to last, and we don't know, like if you're a sole proprietor, are you able to pay yourself? Because they aren't getting paid in lots of cases right now, and I know lots of you people are business people, and we want to assist in that. And it's new for us as a chamber to be getting involved in this, because the chamber sat as an entity that was just there. And now with me in the role, I think we can be quite vital in doing some of these things to help out in our beautiful town and make sure that these people don't fall by the wayside. And maybe it is the few $1,000s that they get. So we're going down this path to help out any way we can and to guide. We are not in a position to say, you know, go see George's accounting firm or Pete's law firm or whatever it is that you need. We're just there to utilize these services and get these people any help that we can. So we ask that for your guys' support in going down there to do it.
Does that answer all your questions, Councillor Padeco?
I just have a couple more comments. I mean, since we haven't asked actually the business community what would be actually beneficial, I mean, this is my major concern with it, right, is that we have $20,000 to spend. Do I feel that this is the most beneficial way for us to spend $20,000 to help businesses that now we haven't even asked what would even be beneficial to them? I kind of struggle with that one, but you know what? I don't want to say that I'm not in support of it either, because obviously our business community needs all the help that they can get. The only thing that I would ask council for in support of is that we actually have a mandate to help those that are most in need. Not that we're, the only thing that I would ask council for in support of is that we actually have a mandate to help those that are most in need. Not that we're opening this up widespread across Cochrane. Hey, any business, you need help? We're all of a sudden here. We're gonna invite you into our program. Let's start at the businesses that are the most affected, the most challenged, the ones that have felt the most, I guess, disparity, hardship. Let's concentrate on them, because I really struggle with the fact that we're just opening this up widespread across Cochrane and we haven't even investigated which businesses those are. So that's what I would suggest. If I'm gonna vote in favor of this, I really want to make sure that we're helping those that need the help. Because like I think Councillor Flowers said the last time she investigated it through Leduc, there was very few businesses. The mayor said today 87. If we're only helping 87 businesses, I hope to God they're the 87 businesses that are the most affected, and that we're not just helping people that just, hey, I could use some support and I'm going to jump on the program. So that's my only concern.
Very understandable, and I get that. So in order for them to qualify for any of this funding, they would have to be in a business that is in need. That's first and foremost. It just can't be someone that, you know, was someone that is successful during this. It has to be someone that's in need, and each one of the programs that they would be applying for have criteria, as you know, that say, well, business has dropped 40%, so you might qualify for this program if you've, so they have to qualify based on a drop in revenue that's significant. And that's why the professional person will assist them and analyze to even if they qualify. If they don't qualify for any of these programs based on they never lost any income, then they wouldn't get any of your funding that you guys, that we're applying for today. They have to qualify, so most of them are 30 to 40 to better than that drop in revenues, which means they're in need. So there is a qualification process for each program, and they would have to qualify for that before they would receive any of this funding from council.
I appreciate that, and I go even further to make sure that they're the ones that have been closed down once, twice, 3 times over, right, or whatever it is. You know, so that even if they've lost income, because a business can lose income, not because of COVID, they could just have lost income, right? So let's make sure that they're specific to being affected by closures by what the government has instilled on them.
Very much so.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fedayko. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my question is kind of following up on that. One of my questions, and I see that mapped out in the presentation, it says they have to, you know, prove a significant revenue decrease. What does that look like? How do you prove that in the application process? And then you had, the second part of the question is, you'd mentioned you're thinking like the mom and pop businesses, this would be most likely to attract or are meant to serve. But could you give me some examples of some of those in town? So those are the kind of the 2 questions.
So based on that, it would be somebody that has lost income based on the program. Again, there's certain criteria to reach each program, and that's why the professional services idea is that they would be able to see if they could qualify for it. So I would say that that would be the person that would have, as Mike alluded to, you know, less than 10 employees that, you know, need to pay them. And so some of the programs go through that process. So we're not in a position that says, okay, well, we'll give you that money, but they have to be applying for a program that they qualify for. So it would be people that were in that limited number of employees, and so they would qualify for, maybe it's a wage subsidy, so, or maybe it is one of the other ones. So they would go to the professional person who is way more qualified than I am to say, you know what, I need help with rent, or I need help with my employees getting paid. So they would apply through for whatever process it is with help from the professional services to see if they qualify. And so we think, and it is our experience with Leduc and with Wetaskiwin Chambers giving us feedback, that that has been their knowledge base, that these are the people that utilized when this program was initiated up in that area. So that's why we're pretty knowledgeable, and those are the people that were applying for it. Does that answer your question?
I'm still confused on the pre-application process, because I can get that, you know, I have a question, so I'm going to book into one of your list of accountants to talk about my business, but like that accountant is still going to get paid to kind of pre-qualify whether they can actually help these clients. Is that not correct? Is there a pre-qualification before they actually start working with these contractors, or no?
They have to qualify for one of the programs in order to get the funding, which means they've lost significant revenue. And so that is something that we aren't going to pre-qualify, but the accountant is.
Okay, but are you paying the accountant? So if the accountant meets with them for half an hour and is like, you know what, you don't qualify, is the program still reimbursing the accountant for that
No.
30 minutes?
No.
No.
It only reimburses people that qualify for one of the programs.
Sorry to interrupt, if I may. If the government, if the federal government says you qualify for this program, the professional services money that would go towards that would to make sure that they understand the implications on their taxes, potentially, and how to use that and how to account for it within their daily world. So we're saying you've tapped into provincial funding, you've tapped into federal funding. How does it affect your business? How can a professional services person make sure that you're navigating through the tax implications and that you're utilizing it appropriately? It's not about, can I qualify for this program? It's, I qualify for the program, I've taken the money, but what are the implications on my business? And that's where small mom and pop shops don't have that ability to go and say, oh, I actually have to pay taxes on this money, or I have to pay it back, or I have to, you know, so that's where the professional services that they wouldn't tap into would normally give them the ability to say, oh, they've somebody who's looking after my best interest who can say, oh, that's how it affects my business after the fact. So that's where we're going with this program. It's not about, do I qualify for funding? Well, you can show the government that you've lost 40% revenue, you qualify for a revenue subsidy. But then, what implications does that have on my business after the fact? And that's when the professional services people can kick in and go, I've got to pay my taxes, help me do that, because I don't know what's happened. We went out to some restaurants and they're saying, it's the restaurant people, and they said, you know, okay, I tapped into the funding, but what are the implications of that? What do I have to do after the fact? Some of them were afraid because they didn't actually know that, you know, well, what do I have to pay it back? Are they going to want me? Am I going to have a debt? So we just need to answer these questions for these people, and I think that's where we're looking to go with that, is to provide them tax support after the fact.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification for sure. So now I understand which clients, which businesses we're going to be able to help. It's those that have already identified the need and have proven they have the need with the existing programs. Okay. One of the questions that, and you'd highlighted this in your presentation, is that there's a lot of confusion, that you do need these experts to kind of step you through. Is one of the thoughts of the program that kind of identify the most common ones and communicate that back up to the provincial and federal programs so they can adjust? Like, it seems foolhardy to me that we would have these programs that are meant to help people, but are then in themselves so confusing that they make things difficult. Is there just a chance to take the key learnings from the program and pass it back up?
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, we can absolutely do that. Yeah, we can provide that information to our province and federal representatives.
So, yeah, what I do like about this program, it's building off of something that's already been proven. I think it's a reasonable investment number from the municipal taxpayer. I like that it's a partnership with the chamber, allowing to build and support that partnership. So there's a lot I like about it, yeah, it has my support, and I look forward to seeing the reports back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McFadden. Councillor Flowers?
I too wanted to start off and say thanks to the Chamber for being willing to administer this. I think it'll really connect you to the local businesses and get things going. It'll be a lot of work. My question too was, after we discussed it at a previous meeting, and I think there was an article in the paper, did anyone reach out to you and say, oh, I think this is a great idea, I could sure use it?
I think most of the people that have reached out didn't understand what it looked like. So, and I hope if anyone hears from anyone, please get a hold of me and I'll be happy to explain it to them. We will see that, I think tomorrow, where we roll it out. If that's the case, if you guys support it and we roll it out, there'll be a lot more information available for them to look at and what it is. If unfortunately Mike couldn't roll the website out, it is quite comprehensive for the information that they'll get to see and they'll get to go on. But it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, although we have the support of Leduc and Wetaskiwin as people that I can call at any moment to say, whoa, we're overwhelmed. Could I be back here saying, there's 800 businesses in Cochrane that want to utilize this, and this is taking us over? It could happen, I guess, because it's tough out there, and they may need that 5 hours of support from a professional service to get that. And once it's going down the path, everyone's going to be aware that when the money's out, but you know, it could be more than we even think we need to give them, because it's tough.
I think the message that they don't have to be a chamber message is really important.
It is.
Because some of them may not pay attention to it when it's coming through the chamber, so.
And it's also open to everyone. It don't have to be a chamber member, although if we support it, don't worry, I'll be over there wanting them to join the chamber. But in the same token, I think it's a program that we are going to run, but I think it's a town program. So, yep, they don't have to be a member, but it's the town. We are just operating it for the town. So I think it looks good on you guys if you support it, that this is something that the town is giving back, because it's tough as a town to support too much, because it's the feds and it's the provincial government that are putting these programs out there. So you guys aren't necessarily down that path handing out money, so I think it's good on you that you're supporting businesses in any way you can.
And I believe I read in the details that the professional services had to be local. They
Yes.
couldn't go to Calgary and use them.
Yes.
I think that's a great move as well.
And I'll give Mike credit on that because he knew that you guys would want it to be town. And
Thank
so
you.
Mike fed that back to us, said that if it's a town program, you're way better off if it's a business licensed in Cochrane. However, Mike did feed back to me that to operate an accounting firm, you don't necessarily have to have a business license. But we've chosen to go down the path as we want them to be licensed businesses and licensed professional businesses as well.
Good idea. My final comment is I'm glad to see it coming out of reserves for my rainy day fund, so it's not affecting anything else, because it's really great to support local business.
So that's all, Mike.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carson, Ms. Sinclair, for bringing it forward, Mr. Corman. You were saying the accounting services that we'd use would be, it would be at the, once a company or a small business qualifies for it, they'd get to choose their service, or do you lead them to the person or the?
Nope.
Nope.
We don't want to go down that path of recommending anybody other than
Okay.
they're licensed.
Okay.
It's not something that I want to go down. I just want them to be licensed businesses and licensed professional services in the town of Cochrane.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense to me. What about businesses that don't have employees? So businesses that have the contractor model, is this something that fits in the criteria, or is it a?
Through the
employee
chair, Council Wilson, they do have to qualify for the provincial, federal. So if they don't have employees and they don't qualify for the programs and they haven't tapped into any funding, then they probably.
Go on there, it's all one, fill it out. It's a simple form to fill it out. And it comes to me, and then we go down the path of them utilizing a service. And then if they qualify, then it'll come back to me to say, yep, here's 5 hours of your money, and bang, it's,
So Cochrane Chamber of Commerce website,
yep.
right? Okay.
Just to add to that, we will be utilizing economic development budget money to promote the program on all channels through the town, and our communications team is ready to assist the chamber in getting the word out. So we will ensure that everybody is very much aware of the program.
Thank you.
It's also going on the radio so that everyone's aware. But also I want, and this is the first time that I've talked to you guys, I want you to phone me at any time, or email me that you have questions or concerns, and let's sit down. Because I know in the past, the Cochrane Chamber is not necessarily in the town has, so if we can work together on other programs as well, but this one and others, and let's show our town that we're working to help. That's all I'm asking, is for your guys' support going forward, that you'll pick up the phone if you hear something and phone me. So this one first, but we want to do many. We want to build this beautiful community, and I want to get this right.
I wanted to set you up for one other thing kind of on that vein, just that we're seeing this unnatural destruction of our small business community due to lockdowns. It's something we've never seen before. I hope we're never going to see again. Could you speak to just briefly some of the hardship you've personally seen with the chamber and just what the temperature?
It's more about, they are not number one knowledgeable people on how to get through this. I mean, they need revenue. And so the revenue is not going to be from me or you. The revenue is going to be from applying for a little program to find out if they can get some money back somehow to help them out. And this is a little program to help them learn about it. But if they don't qualify for any of this, they're not going to get any of this money. The money comes if they qualify for a program and they've learned from our professional services that this is the best way to apply, then they will get some money.
Okay, thank you. I'm in support of right where you've landed. I like that it's a very small $20,000 max. There's no time frame needed to be put on it because once the money's out, the program ends.
Dance.
And I'd love to see your group back here in front of us, success or failure at some point in the future once it's run its course, just to, if we do go through with it tonight, of course, just to hear back on how it went and, you know, see what we do in the future. So just thanks for the presentation. I'm in support of the 20K amount.
If the money runs out and there's a need, I'll be back. I can tell you that, I will be back. If there's more people that need help to access more professional services, I will be back here.
We'll, we'll cross that bridge when we get
That's
to it.
right.
We got
The
this
first
one in
one,
front
we'll
of us
live with this
tonight.
one, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to
I
speak.
appreciate the passion. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the questions.
Councillor Reid.
Councillor Wilson asked most of the questions I had, but if the motion hasn't been made, I'll make the option, move option one, that council approve the funding for the COVID-19 Professional Services Grant Program of $20,000 through the Economic Development Reserve Fund. You know, I'm not directly connected to the business community, but I can appreciate the made in Cochrane solution. It obviously has a proven track record of success, and so I'm really in support of it. I think, you know, as others have said, anything we can do to help our business community will really make a difference. I guess my two questions are, if I were one of those mom and pop shops and I'm so busy just trying to stay open, am I going to have time to go to the chamber website, or is there going to be some way you can drill this down to me as a small business owner? That would be my first question. And then the second one was actually similar to the one that Patrick just asked. I too love the pilot nature of this program, and so I would like to see it not as a great news story or a sad news story, but just I think you have a responsibility to come back to us and give us a return on investment kind of report about the successes that you have. And admittedly, if it has been successful, then you're welcome to come back and ask for more money. But I think take one step at a time. So my first question is, how do you drill this down to that mom and pop shop who may not necessarily be kind of in tune with what's happening at the chamber or go to their website? And secondly, what will be the measures of success of this program? The number of people who are successful at getting that, will you know how much money they get, like some references the mayor made about Leduc? Will you have those measures of success for us?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, we will get all the metrics of who tapped into the program, what professional services were utilized, and then we'll go to those professional services people and ask how much did the business be able to claim? How was their, you know, how did you help them out? And I think from a marketing perspective, we gotta make phone calls, get people understanding where this money can be reached. We'll help them walk through the site, similar to how we would with shopcochrane.ca, help them monitor, work their way through the site to get their site up to promote it. We're happy to help in any way. I've got staff that can help as well. Okay. And so we'll try to do our best to, you know, have the people that don't have the time, that have got funding and they just don't know how it's going to impact the business later on. We're going to help them out for sure.
To Kelly, sorry.
Yes, I know.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that this isn't going to be positioned in any way as a Chamber of Commerce initiative, but a municipal business support initiative. So any marketing to drive awareness to it, and in fact, the URL for the website is not a Cochrane Chamber URL, it's CochraneCOVIDservices.ca. So it's much more sort of generically branded that way.
All right, thank you for that. Councillor Federico, you had another question?
That was exactly to my point, that, you know what, I hope that this brings awareness to the chamber, because I think that the chamber has been fairly stalled as far as I know in my past history of the number of businesses that are chamber members. It's not steadily growing, right? So I'm hoping that this brings awareness to the organization and the good that it can do and provide to our community. Mr. Corman and Ms. Sinclair, I hope that you pass on graphics, whatever we need to do to all council members, so that we can also share this out on our social media feeds, because obviously you take in 7 people that might have 2,000 people on their feeds. That's 14,000 people that we can reach, even if there's a crossover. So please share that information, because this is something that affects many people. like I said, I'm all in favor of supporting our local small businesses. I just want to make sure that if we are spending money, it is in the best way, that we're supporting the most people that we can in the best way that we can. And like I said, hopefully it grows the organization and the Chamber's cooperation and commitment to the town of Cochrane.
Yeah, thank you. It looks like we're hearing support, and I'm pleased to hear that from my colleagues tonight. Much has been said already about the benefits of the program, but I like that we, and Mr. Carson touched on it, that, you know, as a municipality, we're limited in the funding that we can pass along to struggling businesses, or residents for that matter. But the fact that we potentially at $500 per business maximum, we could help 40 businesses and turn that 20,000, and if I use the small number that would do $40,000 into our economy right here with the $20,000 investment from a reserve fund. So if it saves one business, if it saves one job, I think that's a success. So that's a key performance indicator from my perspective, no matter how many businesses it helps. So I'm happy to hear the support around the table tonight, and thank you to the Chamber for stepping up and administering the program. I think on another note that no one's really touched on, the administration side of it hopefully is light, but it's not, doesn't go without saying that we appreciate the horsepower that you're going to bring to the table, and that helps our economic development program. So with that, I think everything's been said. I don't see anybody else's lights on. Councillor Reid has put the motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All those in support of the program? And that carries. Thank you for your presentation tonight, and thank you for all you're doing for local business. Okay. We have no finance section on our budget. Oof, it's not that time of year yet. Agenda. Moving into notices of motion, and I would just before Councillor Flowers takes the floor, I would just highlight that this notice of motion is moved through our system as per our outlined process, and I'm not sure that, at least I wasn't clear on it right from the beginning, and we've tried a few iterations of how notice of motions have worked in the past, but Councillor Flowers has followed the process to the letter tonight, and I just want to highlight that so we're all clear on it, and Mr. Derricott's going to bring up some of this in our workshop next week, just for a refresher, but a notice of motion should be provided to the organization ahead of the agenda so that it could be on the agenda, and then we can all read it, and we will deal with it like an agenda item. So we'll all have the heads up. So no more will we have a notice of motion. It's a notice of motion tonight. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that we will vote on this tonight to see if we agree to pass this on to administration for further action. So it's a little bit of a deviation from what we're used to, but I think it's a much smoother process. One that we've always had in place that we've just been negligent in following, and I'll take full responsibility for that. Over to you, Councillor Flowers.
Thank you, Mr. Derricott, for putting me through the process.
Well, just, yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
can't quite hear you.
Thank you to Mr. Derricott for working me through the process. It did go quite smoothly, and it feels like a good process. So I wanted to bring this forward to my colleagues tonight to discuss. It's been a couple of years since the Tri-Site Committee did all the work on the Fifth Avenue site. And with all the changes and things that are happening, I just don't want it to get lost. It's election year, everything's changing, COVID's put us behind the eight ball and a lot of things. So the action, I'll just read the recommended action.
Sure.
That council direct administration to prepare a report on the status of the downtown Fifth Avenue town-owned land, including a recommended set of actions to keep the project moving forward. The report to be brought back by June 14th, 2021. So I was hoping that if we did have a report, maybe some of the action items could be get started before the election and keep the momentum going. So do you want me to read the background out loud too?
No,
Just
I
for the
think
public, or-
everybody's good, but we can certainly have questions and debate.
Sure.
And
So part of it was that the Rocky View Foundation is soon ready to move forward with the Big Hill Lodge, and there's other groups that want to start planning.
Councillor McFadden, questions, concerns, debate? Kudos.
No debate. I really wanted to thank Councillor Flowers for bringing this forward. I think the tri-site was a really visionary step in filling some of the gaps in our community. And, we lost some momentum last year. And so I'm grateful for you for championing this and adding some momentum to it so that we can get back to making a difference. So I'm excited to see this project moving ahead again.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor McFadden. Councillor Federico.
I too, I'm glad that you brought this forward. I'm definitely in support of supporting senior housing in whatever way that we can. My only concern is that when we get into the other user groups that are involved, that the general community at large is not all of a sudden aware that we're going to be building a whole entire area down there that would be perhaps taxpayer funded or funded through other means, reserves that we maybe don't necessarily always have readily available. I mean, our budget is pretty well spent on fixing traffic and many other areas that we've already allocated towards. So I just want to make sure that if we are moving forward with a plan, that just the general ideas that we're not moving forward like gung-ho, everything's going to be developed within an X amount of time. And regardless of what we think of here on council, the general public sees it very, regardless of what we think of here on council, the general public sees it very differently. We go forward and we say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to approve this idea, this plan, but all of a sudden they think, oh my God, we're developing the whole entire area. So I just want to make sure that communication piece is very clear, that we're really doing this to support probably one portion of it, which is the senior housing aspect, not necessarily jump forward and have an event center going on and everything else that we kind of talked about before. I just want to be cautious of that as we go forward, because I think the people are already probably kind of concerned as to where their taxpayer dollars are going or whatever that's going to look like. And we have no events planned going forward, so we don't even know what that could look like. So that's my only 2 cents on that one.
So just as a point of clarification, administration would bring back that tri-site implementation strategy that we had. And I'm just listing a couple of things and not limiting it to that, but then a report back on costs, how to move forward, and then at that point, and that's June 14th, council will have the opportunity to say no, or this way or that way, or this item or that item. So to exactly Councillor Federico's point, is that accurate?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. That is exactly the intent here. I think of the notice of motion is that administration would bring back a report that would include a review of the work that's already been done. And then I think the word we've been using is momentum, and to ensure that there's continued momentum, I think would include a recommended or projected timelines on some of the various aspects of it that I think would address some of Councillor Federico's questions there as well.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Federico.
And I certainly understand that's where we come from council and administration, but it is the public belief. And I mean, all of a sudden you go out to the public and we vote this year and we're all in support. You can guarantee that tomorrow my inbox is going to be flooded with the amount of people who are going to be like, oh my God, we're building an event center and whatever else, right? So you go out to the public and we vote this year and we're all in support. You can guarantee that tomorrow my inbox is going to be flooded with the amount of people who are going to be like, oh my God, we're building an event center and whatever else, right? So I just think that we have to be very careful and cautious of how this goes forward and what that's going to look like as we proceed.
Yeah, understood. I think I lost track of whose lights are on, but Councillor Reed's, yours is on now, so.
Okay, I'll take it.
Over to you.
Yeah, when I saw this notice of motion in the agenda package, I was really tickled. I thought it was right on, and I applaud Councillor Flowers for bringing this forward. For me, it actually, while I think there is a need to manage expectations, I thought that was the whole point of bringing this notice of motion forward, was so that we could manage that, right? I think when we do nothing with it, I think when there's a void, I think people fill that void with whatever they want to believe. So I was tickled that this was coming forward. I think this is one way of being able to kind of manage those expectations of the public and saw that the very reason of the notice of motion. So I'm really glad to see it come forward. I'm happy to support it.
Yes, seeing, wow, solid comment to close. All right. I don't see any other comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Moving on, Mayor's report. I'll keep it brief, but we're in person. Just a few items. I wanted to touch on the Alberta provincial budget, obviously. We've been kind of communicating through emails, but the top highlights, obviously, the 25% reduction in the MSI funding over the next 3 years, although we do see an increase in this calendar year. Solid to see the FCSS and library funding untouched. But the one thing I would bring highlight to, and it's kind of a segue into what I really wanted to touch on, was the disaster relief program. And while it may seem like a small incremental change, I think it's a big one that the implications to communities and to our province is potentially far-reaching. And not to get into the entire program, but essentially prior to the budget being passed, the provincial budget, or the province, sorry, would cover 100% of any disaster program that us as a community would apply for, and that's above and beyond what individual insurance would cover. And I'm really just flying here, building the plane while I'm flying it. But I've had a few conversations about this, but the shift now is that the municipality would be responsible for 10% of that, and that a single resident or single postal code could only apply for funding for one time in its life. And I believe the intent when I talked to Minister McIver was, and this is what he shared, that they're trying to encourage municipalities and homeowners, developers, etc., from stopping building in floodplains, hazardous areas, and then having the province repay and rebuild, and then floods again, or a fire goes through again, where we know potentially it's going to happen. So stop building in those. Disaster. And the answer is yes, as far as this program is concerned. But I would just like to discuss that further. And perhaps there's some advocacy initiatives that we need to mull over as a group, and that's that DRP, the Disaster Relief Program. The provincial police in general, are we in favor of that? Do we have commentary on that? AUMA has certainly taken a position on it. But what do we feel as a community? And then the municipal election changes, so Bill 52, which is the recall legislation where the province can, you know, an electorate can rise up and recall a provincial elected official. And I thought that's where it ended, but it also reaches into school trustees and municipal bodies as well. So and I'm not suggesting that I am in favor or against any of these, but I think we should have a deeper dive as a group on what they mean for Cochrane and what do we want to see done, and then start sharing that message, whether it's in favor or opposed. CMRB, I think I shared the extension was granted, so we have until June 1st. We recently had a workshop, which was visioning, so spent 6 hours visioning again with the group. And I'm happy to say that I think we're starting to make some progress. At least it felt like it in the visioning session. We are going to do another round of public engagement, so be aware of that. There'll be some more input garnered from the region. And then we moved into a board meeting where we said goodbye, and I think I highlighted this, that our former chair, Chris Sheard, has been at our cultural days when Minister here was here, the MLA for Chestermere. It's a Rocky View County artist who has a gallery in Calgary. So I thought it was a real municipal or regional gift, and it was a small gift, not a large donation from taxpayers. So happy to say that Chris is on retirement now, and that we're happy that Greg is in place and he's been chairing our meetings. Mid-sized cities, I think I talked about the update from Leduc. The general theme on that front is that that group wants to step up the advocacy efforts there. And again, I'm only sharing, I'm the messenger here, but the general theme or feel from most of the mayors is that the provincial government is not listening to municipalities. They are not engaging us for feedback on some of the changes that they're making. And again, I'm not saying that that's happened here or not, but to that point, they would like to up our advocacy efforts as a mid-sized cities group. So we're going to be inviting ministers to our meetings for that back and forth, and so we can liaise with the province. And that being said, I mean, COVID is real. It's affected everybody's business case and how we're engaging with our own residents, for that matter. And so that, I think the province actually has a very good excuse for some of it. They're quite busy, but we would like to have our voice heard a little louder. So the other thing in our community to highlight to our residents, the major projects that we're doing through our budget, and also to start to film the 3 major capital groundbreakings that we're going to launch here in coming months. So RCMP detachment, the 1A project, and the transit hub. So watch for those on social media. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on the Big Hill Creek discussion. Obviously, it's no secret, I don't know if everyone's followed, but Rocky View County passed approved a gravel pit close to the headwaters of the Big Hill Creek. We sent a letter to the Reeves office. You were all copied on it. I'm sure you all have read it and seen it. But it was a little bit, I thought, a balanced approach to saying we really support your programs that you have in place and the plans and the scenarios that you are choosing to follow as a county, and that this ends and the scenarios that you are choosing to follow as a county, and that this is really flying in the face of some of that. So just wanted to be upfront and clear that I did receive a letter or an email back. I think you were all copied on it from the Reeve this afternoon. I will be reaching out to him to have a conversation, which is always best. Email is clunky, as we all have experienced. So to be determined at a later date, but that we care about our creek, obviously, that runs through our community, and that we would like to share that care and thought with our municipal partner, or neighbor. So just wanted to keep you guys highlighted on and up to date on what's been going on with Rocky View County. That is just a toe into the water of that relationship, which we're going to follow up on at our workshop next week. And that's my report. 2 minutes to the minute. Thank you. Councillor Federico, you have a report to give?
I actually just wanted to wish women.
Thank you. Councillor Federico, you have a report to give?
I actually just wanted to wish women out there across Cochrane
Oh,
and
thank
area
you.
that it is Happy International Women's Day, and I hope that as leaders of our organization, that we are pillars of this, that we do not accept gender bias, and that is very much my whole message. Women shouldn't be treated any different. They shouldn't be treated as emotional. They shouldn't be treated as they have different ideas than men, that we are all equal, and we invite all women to become leaders in our community, especially, and thank you to the women and of our council.
I'm so fortunate in Cochrane to have so many great and strong women leaders that make a point of making a difference and give women and young women like my daughter someone to emulate. So, but thanks for the shout out. I did want to, and also thank the mayor for raising a number of the concerns. I think provincially we are well served in our local MLA, but a number of the changes over the last year and through this budget are, in my opinion, not beneficial to the municipal government. And more broadly, I've really felt that the municipal government has spent much time trying to understand the needs and the perspective of municipalities in serving our residents. So if we're going to have some conversations about the pinch points there and how we need to advocate for what's best for the people of Cochrane. I'm really glad to hear that. And then finally, speaking of advocating, as you know, I chair the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, and they're always out of sync because those meetings are the third Tuesday of the month, so by the time we roll into a council meeting, it feels like a month has gone by. But that committee is back up and working after kind of a long pause due to COVID mostly. But so we had a presentation on a number of items. The focus of that group is going to be working on the Horse Creek Sports Park for the next number of months, how to get that design back on track, because removing, and I think it's a much better design, not having Southland there changes the design layout and what's allowed there, so we're kind of back to the drawing board, and so we'll be working through that with our staff and contractors and the committee to kind of redesign that. So that's the work of the committee. The past meeting, we had a presentation from a newly formed I can't remember, it's Track and Field Society, I believe they're calling themselves. So it's headed up by, I think, largely teachers, but they have a vision, and the municipality did send out and we're looking for some support. The committee is going to talk about it at our next meeting, and then speaking about the best way forward, once I get feedback from the committee what their take is, I will bring that back to council as kind of their report. So we're working through that. We also had a report from, or so not a report, a presentation from Cochrane Rugby about their vision for how they would fit onto the Cochrane, the Horse Creek Sports Park. And Bike Cochrane has reached out as well, wanting to see if they need an update and to share their vision. So what I'm really sensing on our recreation side is with COVID, the pent-up pause people are done with, and they want to get moving ahead and start building out their recreation community and seeing that site move ahead. So I'm excited for the work of that, and hopefully we can lay out a good plan that we can build into over the next couple of years. So, but I am starting to hear a lot of user groups that want to see their sports taken to the next level on that site, are anxious to get it going. So please keep that in your mindset about how we need to advance that. Certainly I'm seeing the gap in not having a community services senior manager person to kind of take that load at this point, but one step at a time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McFadden. Councillor Flowers?
Thank you for recognizing International Women's Day. That's awesome. So great to work with you women all around. Two things I wanted to mention. The Social Recovery Task Force met, and time is running out for that group, but they've identified that, what is it, May 3rd to 7th is Mental Health Week. And so we're going to try to plan some activities around that, and we don't know what it looks like yet, but we want to put the challenge out to others to start thinking about what they could do that week, whether it's town administration or nonprofit groups. We could really come together and make a difference for the mental health of our residents. The weather's going to be good. It's going to be summertime almost by then, so put your thinking caps on. The other thing is I'm on the committee for the awards, and it's not a town committee, it's actually a community committee, but I've been involved with it for a few years. So I'm on the group that's trying to get people to recommend people for awards. So if you could think of anybody in any of the categories, please get it going and get in and nominate them for an award.
That's the Cochrane Community Awards?
Yes.
And I understand we're going to do a Order of Cochrane again?
That's right. We just did an Order of Cochrane, but we're going to do another one. So
For this year? Yeah.
Right. It's in May. So do think about that as well. And again, it's not a town committee, but we're involved with it, and the town supports it heavily. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And
It's in May.